Hello, greetings, and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Phil Rice YouTube channel. It's a lovely overcast day here in Auckland, New Zealand, and I've got another wonderful guest and show lined up for us today to talk about a critical topic. Now, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll shift straight into the cast. So if you would like to stay in touch, please go to Phil Rice Substack, philrice.substack.com. Why? Because your email address means we can stay in touch direct. And so it's a very valuable way of keeping in touch when big platforms maybe feel otherwise. So I appreciate that. Please click the subscribe button to stay updated on YouTube. That's very much appreciated and helps with the metrics and such. And of course, I want to do a shout out to the sponsor of this month's live streaming software, and that is our friends at Violet Flame Studios, who are in process of, they've actually just dropped the Kickstarter and the Steam page for their upcoming title, Ascension, the Immortal Alchemist. So you can go onto their website, www.violetflamestudios.co.nz, and you can see the efforts that are being made there, and it's very impressive. I've had some personal time with it, and it's top tier work, and we're hoping this will help to bring some attention to these topics as well. So thank you to Violet Flame Studios. Now, I will get straight into it here. I have, once again, the very, very cool, knowledgeable teacher, author, presenter, organizer, administrator, writer, author. Let's see, I think there's so many words for this gentleman. Just a very knowledgeable man. I'm very blessed to have him here. I think we're very blessed to have someone who's making the efforts that he is. And once again, I'd like to bring to the stage the one and only Mr. Mark Stavish. Greetings, Mark. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here.
Always a pleasure. And this is great. When I saw your latest initiative to sort of keep the fires burning, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to get you back on one-to-one, and we can do a bit of a deep dive into the Institute for Hermetic Studies and the efforts involved in ensuring the continuity of the availability and of these quite rare volumes and elsewise. And so I guess I'd like to start with why was the Institute for Hermetic Studies created in the first place?
Well, it was 1998, and it was a small local group that I had started. And we were getting people from across the mid-Atlantic states, from Boston to DC, or New York, were driving in to come to twice monthly regular events. And over time, it grew. And we had seminars and events. And we just found that we seemed to be offering something, despite groups in these areas, that they weren't offering. People would come in and say, why are you driving 2.5 hours from New York? Why are you driving 5 hours from Boston or 4 hours from DC? And they just liked what we had. I said, okay, fine. And then it just grew. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. You don't think much. And then 9/11 rolls around. We get hit pretty hard because we have folks coming in from these areas that are now no longer traveling. We have to reorganize a little bit. We had space. We had very nice rented temple space, our own microwave and coffee maker and library,
Awesome.
all the good stuff, right? And I have a picture of the stairways on one of our monographs, or in one of our study guides, that is, because you look down and you're looking down this stairway, and I say everyone wants to study in a castle until they have to walk up 4 flights of steps and it's wintertime and there's no heat.
Right.
So we had a great time. We made a lot of good friends and good relationships, and a lot of activities, friendships that were made out of that continued to grow. And this is at the same time when I was involved with the Philosophers of Nature. Philosophers of Nature then ceased to function, in 2000. It did its 22 years and closed down. The rights to those lessons and materials were given to Russ House and Russ and Sue House at Triad Publishing, kept them going for another, I'm just going to pull a number out, I think 5 or 6 years. And then we just continued to grow, and I published. When I finally published, we got even more and more attention. So we're holding more seminars. By this time, we moved away from the twice monthly activities, and we're doing seminars. And these recordings and publications from these presentations became the basis of our current coursework. And we just continued to grow. Then at some point, we have to make decisions. And some of those decisions are, what do we do with everything we've been doing? Do we move completely online with coursework? And we began to do that with Teachable. And that was possible, but like it or not, that's possible because of COVID. With COVID, so many things went to Zoom that people then became familiar with this notion of distance learning. Now, was it a favorite of ours? No. We like it and we do well with it and we enjoy it, but we do prefer to deal with people in person. But let's face it, dealing with events in person can get very expensive very quickly.
Yes.
So we have one conference a year. It's spectacularly attended. We have great speakers to make it worth the effort, but we recognize the very real limitations that people are under. So we try to do our best to accommodate. And in fact, we've done our best to accommodate for our first 20 years. For 20 years, almost everything we did was at little or no cost. It was almost completely paid for by patrons. And that's
Really?
that's a very important point to make. Only with COVID and with the beginning of Patreon and Teachable did we start saying to people, there's price tags attached to this stuff, because there's price tags attached to the delivery of it, and it's still very affordable. During the same time, we began to, and this goes back, say this new initiative is really, it's not new. Probably 5 or 6, well, it goes back longer than that, more than 6 years ago. But 6 years ago, we really were able to get serious discussions with people about shared space. Good locations, good possibilities, good rent, common ground. Can we get in there? We help you, you help us. What do we call that? Working together, right? Cooperation. Unfortunately, with the onslaught of COVID, a lot of these organizations, and we took a serious hit too. I mean, it almost put us out, but a lot of these organizations didn't survive it well. They came out of it much weaker than they went into it. So we would go back and we would jumpstart these conversations, or they would come to us. They would come to us and we would jumpstart them. But we weren't getting the kind of commitments that we needed. And when we were, on closer inspection, we would find that, they're not in a strong enough position. They may not survive 5 years, 8 years. So we began to say, well, what are we going to do with the massive information we have accumulated and created over the years? How are we going to preserve this body of knowledge for another generation or two? I mean, I remember going to the library as a kid, going to the back and going to the second floor in the back where they had all the good books on UFOs and ESP and psychic research. And our library, our public library had some really good stuff. And then I remember the university libraries, which were both a block from the public library. We could access those. They had good stuff too. And I thought, well, what can we do? So we began to look for partners again. And it was a very laborious process. And I don't think people understand, and they really don't, what goes on when you're trying to engage with people in this kind of long-term relationship. It is a marriage of sorts. And generally speaking, when you look to partner with someone, this regardless of what it is, you need to find someone who has three qualities. They have to have an interest in what you're offering. So we've got thousands of books on esoteric, alchemy, Kabbalah, Rosicrucianism, Martinism, Freemasonry, witchcraft, psychic research, New Thought, history related to it. You got to find someone who has interest in that. Then you have to find someone who has the capacity to deal with it. And then you have to find someone who has an interest, capacity, and financial stability. They're going to be around because it is a marriage. It's long term. So the typical organizations that we dealt with, because of the effects of the previous 4 to 5 years, they often had an interest or capacity, but they didn't have financial stability. Or they didn't have the ability to deal with it. They had the interest, but they simply didn't have the skill set. Because managing a library and old books is more than just putting them on the shelf. It's how do people have access to it? How do you preserve it? How do you ensure that they don't come back damaged or that they come back? I just, before we came online, I was actually selling some books to a librarian, someone I know quite well. And they're good books. They're fine. But this is a private library they're going to. You're never going to see these. Almost none of our listeners here are going to have access to them. And that's important to know. So if we have this material, how do we put it in a position where people have access to it? So, we had several choices. One is, stop me if I went over this because I know we talked about it earlier. One is you do a massive capital campaign. You raise $500,000. Really, you need $1 million, but $500,000. You take $250,000 and you buy a building. You got to buy it outright. You got to own it. You take the other $250,000 and you put that in an endowment, never to be touched for the next 5 to 10 years. And then you find a way to get $2,000 to $3,000 a month to maintain that structure and volunteers to run it because you're not going to really have paid staff. And that's how you run a library like that. And I remember the days when people were able to do that. I remember going to some places like that when those figures were far, far lower. I don't think that's very realistic, just given the amount of cash involved. The other is you find the partner, and the partner I described has to have those three qualities. And if you don't have a partner that has those three qualities and you don't have a capital campaign, then your third option is just to sell everything off, because at some point that's what's going to happen. It's going to get dispersed to the winds one way or the other. So you've got to find homes for these things, and homes that are, as we said, viable. So we were very fortunate when we sent out a very, I have to say, well-written letter to the University of Scranton, to their library, to their special collections, and they responded very enthusiastically. And they came and visited me, and we discussed options and timelines and what could be included and would be included in the Institute for Hermetic Studies collection and how that would be managed. And the beauty of this is it's in the premier university research library in northeastern Pennsylvania. It's a backstop to the Ivy League. I taught there. And books are available to faculty, staff, students, and through interlibrary loan. Now, of course, there's going to be some things because of condition or age or rarity are going to be a visitation only. That's always a possibility. You have to deal with. But most of the things that people would want are going to be there. So think about it. You want to read certain books, you'll be able to order them, at least within the United States, get them sent to you by interlibrary loan, and maybe you will be read only in reference. You have to read it only in the library where you order it, but at least you have access to it. Other ones that won't have that may not have that limitation, and it's going to be very nice, a very nice collection. I mean, we have just went through the first round of selection process, and I mean, probably one of the finest collections on Martinism and Rosicrucianism is going to be up there. Still waiting to see how things go with the Golden Dawn and alchemy. You got to sort through some of that. But it's a very time-consuming, very laborious, and incredibly expensive process. You know, and that's why we're engaged in this mechanism of fundraising.
I think that a great opportunity we have here is to get into conversation about sort of the what's involved and obviously there's maintaining existing systems, but then there's also like staying abreast of modern opportunities, and sometimes there's necessary kind of upgrades that have to happen, which are going to accrue and require costs and things. And if there's any move into the digital world, like more so and more so, I mean, like running a website has got regular costs too. Like you said, you're selling books, like the library is nourishing itself essentially as well. And I mean, taking a picture of a book, putting it up on Facebook with a thing, and then there's the communications and all that. There's a lot of time spent doing these things. And this is something I'd really like to convey to the people watching and listening who may be unaware of it. That there is a time cost involved here, but that is essentially what the work is. And obviously this having resources and people to help out in some form or another can help to fatten out the support base essentially, so that there's less. There's ways for everyone to pitch in and help bake the bread, essentially. To quote the old nursery rhyme story, everyone wants to help eat the bread, but getting everyone to help bake the bread is another story. And so I think an opportunity like this to explain the sort of the runnings of the institute, and so you've covered so much ground there, and something that popped up to me as well is you're right. There's new printing technology. So, getting old books that are maybe printed on substandard materials that don't last. I was made aware of this from another friend who's a publisher saying, hey, look, we need to basically to keep these books, give them a good lifespan. There's a type of storage, environment that they require. And sometimes, especially if they're older books, they're going to turn to dust if we don't. And there's different types of paper qualities and these types of things. So if the library, for example, has a very rare old antique book of some sort, to keep that, and it's a treasure, and it's like we want to, this one needs some extra care, going through a process of having that reprinted. I mean, is that something that the institute would be involved in, like getting reprints done or anything like that? Or
Well, not at this point, because we're just looking at triaging, some of the stuff that we have and receive. I mean, as I mentioned to you, we can't sell everything.
no.
When we deal with patrons and they send us things, they understand that some is going to be selected for the collection, some will be sold off, and some will be donated. And I had to donate 100 books to a local pagan group because these were good reading copies. But if you were to go to a bookstore and buy them, you'd pay like $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 a piece, tops. You might say, oh, I'll pay $5 because I'm right here. I don't want to order it or ship. Shipping on Amazon is going to be $5 anyhow, so $4 anyhow. So I'll just buy this. We donate those because they're not going to survive, and they're also not going to make the cut. Not every book on chakras needs to be preserved. You have to look at what's going on. So it takes a lot of knowledge and a lot of effort to decide
Mm.
this. And we make sure that anything that we receive finds a best possible home. So if we end up with someone sending us 5, 10, 15, 20 books on alternative health that we can neither use nor sell, we have 2 very nice health and wellness clinics that we drop them off to for their
Mm.
patients and participants. We just see here, and if they're good, if they're good, we drop them off. Say, here, take this, and they're very grateful. So that, of course, is time. You have to understand, when we talk about time, we're talking about life. Let's just not even use the word time. Life. Time goes on forever. Life doesn't.
Mm.
Okay, this takes a great deal of life energy, because what we're talking about is the preservation of something or adding life energy to it, which can only come from us. So we're giving people the opportunity to help out. Many hands lighten the load and all that, but it's really more than that. It's about leaving a legacy, participating in something bigger than yourself that you may never see, but others will, and they'll benefit from it. You really want to be a hero? This is how you do it. I'm sure most of you people listening, they look to their grandfathers or great-grandfathers and look to their great heroic bravery in the Second World War. Well, I'm sure they didn't want to be there doing that. But they did. And a lot of them didn't come back. Or they came back really messed up. And that's heroism. They did what they had to do. They did their duty. And when we look at esotericism today, we have to look at it in that framework. What is my duty? The story goes, at least within the Golden Dawn schools, that when you approach the Temple of the Mysteries, ask, what do you wish to do? I wish to know. Why? In order to serve. Well, who do you serve? What is your duty here? And we have duty to, and that's what Krishna tells Arjuna, stop whining and do your duty. Go out there and fight the battle. You whiner. Get it done. And your duty is fourfold. One is to yourself, because you have to take care of yourself and thereby your family. Your obligations to that. The second duty is to your employer or source of income. And that would be whoever your patrons or customers are. You have a duty to them to do your best, because that's what allows you to stay in this world and do your duty to your family. Then you have a duty to your community. How do you make your community a place worth living in? In whatever small way, and this is the beauty of it, whatever small way. And then there's your duty to the transcendent, to those teachers who have brought you information, those co-workers on the path, those fellow travelers, and to the invisible itself. How do you do your duty to the invisible to keep the transcendent immanent, to keep it present in daily life? This is an opportunity to do your duty. This is an opportunity to create causes and conditions for your well-being and illumination, and create causes and conditions for the well-being and spiritual illumination of people you will probably never met for a generation or two that will be here long after you're gone. But again, if you believe in reincarnation, you may be in that generation or two benefiting from your actions in the present.
This is a valuable conversation, because I sometimes pull myself up and go, I say that I embody a worldview that includes reincarnation, for example. Am I thinking like that? Am I thinking about the long game? Am I taking actions that represent that, that reflect that? Because it takes a lot of the pressure off, if that's the case. You don't have to get it at, a lot of people are grinding away to get lots of things done in their 80 to 100 years, which is awesome. But maybe they, if they had a reincarnation worldview, perhaps they would probably approach things a little differently. But I think our mutual friend Bob at 60 Skills, he talks about this. He's basically setting up something so when he comes back, it'll be easier to find. It'll be more prevalent. There'll be a presence. He's put on all the work, and there's a good chance he'll find it again. And this can still be challenging, I think, for people to sort of take on board. Is that we are here talking about these things, being inspired from the books we've come across, and having these conversations and these methodologies and these teachings by virtue of the fact that somebody else did a bunch of stuff to make that stuff available in the first place. And like I was saying before, I have friends who I'm learning a little bit more about publishing and what's involved in this process, and there's quite a lot. And communicating with people takes, it takes life. Building structures, troubleshooting. How can we ensure? How this method may have ensured this length of time. These new technologies are allowing us to expand upon that. Staying abreast of all this, researching and studying, and like you said, even choosing what makes the cut. I mean, we have a lot of thrift stores, like secondhand stores up here in my little village. And we have a lot of elderly people who are passing on, and they're leaving their estates, and the kids will come in and just see a giant book collection and go, oh, we'll just give it to the locals. For example, the Salvation Army store here will get all these books. Now they obviously have a Christian leaning, which is wonderful. They're a Christian organization, and that does inform which books end up on the shelf for sale. Some books do not make it there. I've seen they have a free book bin where somebody donated a giant giant collection on yoga, and it just went in the freebies bin. And then, for all I know, it may have ended up in the scrap bin because, like this.
I think that's a very important point. Is that most of the Salvation Army around here isn't terribly astute on that. Almost everything makes it unless it has a blazing title. Goodwill is quite good for scoring a lot of good books, but at the same time, they throw out a lot.
Oh man, it's huge.
I have friends, again, if you don't know anyone, if you haven't worked in nonprofits or on the organizational structures, you don't know what really goes on. And the cost, the dumpster cost for 1 year at Salvation Army was, and this is locally, was well north of $100,000. That's cash, well north of $100,000 in cash, just for dumpster costs. And I remember during COVID seeing piles of stuff, and I knew, I said, I'm not taking it here because we had some really good things with in terms of clothing and furniture and some moving. And I said, no, because I can see where it's going to go. It's just going to get chucked. So we changed our donation strategies so that it wouldn't get thrown in the dumpster. But that's what happens because it's so overwhelming. And that's what happens with families when someone dies. The estate is just overwhelming. They'll often call someone in to do an estate sale. People do very well. I've done very well at estate sales with things because you don't know what to do. But, there's part of that movie. I think everyone's seen it. What is it with Johnny Depp, the Ninth Gate? And the opening scene is he's a book seller in New York, rare book, and he goes into the estate. Okay, and of course you can see the guy who's unable to talk, and he's in a wheelchair, but he knows what's going on. And Johnny Depp offers the widow, or whoever was in charge, so much for a couple of volumes. You could see the guy is like, ah.
Yeah.
We're not quite at that level of value, but we are at some levels of value. And even so, I've seen entire collections that were of value and worthwhile just get sold off for nothing. And I mentioned before, I've seen several just get put in dumpsters. So, and whose fault is that? It's the responsibility of the individuals to ensure the survivability of those things which they find of value. And you can only do that when you're alive.
It's interesting you bring up the dumpster cost, because that's almost mirrors exactly what I've heard, because I'm quite, I'm connected with the local community. The Salvation Army is in my family's mall, essentially, and they receive a lot of stuff. They get a lot of what's referred to as negative donations, that is just basically people just dumping crap,
It's
and they
trash.
have, it's all sorts of stuff, and it's dirty and it's unsaleable, and it's, there's rent to pay and all these types of things, and advertising costs and da 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 da. But you're removing these things, and so people who don't know what to look for are essentially just biffing treasures, potentially, because they don't know any different. So I go up and I say, hey, look, I'd love to look through any collections and things, because they have big wheelie skip bins that are just
Yeah.
full of books. Now, there
Yeah.
was a guy up the road here who passed away, an elderly chap, and there were these big orange flexible skip bins out on the footpath there, and the family came in, and just one of these, like, we're talking maybe like 3 cubic meters,
Hmm.
and it was, this guy had a book collection of classics, and I've got everything from, from the Gita to Shakespeare to, that I managed to save, and all these beautiful art books, big huge books with all art prints. This guy had an amazing collection, and it went in the skip. All they did was just throw it, and it was out there. And I thought, well, people know where it is, because people put it up on our local social media grapevine groups, and people went in there and took some stuff. But then the rain came. 2 days later, I'm like, screw this, I'm going up. I took the car up, and I
Hmm.
just put everything into the car. And people probably thought I was, some, like just taking advantage of the situation. I'm like going, it doesn't matter. Like, there's like, this stuff is like going to be destroyed. There were books from the from the late 19th century in that mix too. I wasn't aware of what they were, but I found homes,
Hmm.
and it took time, it took talent, and it took treasure to figure out, like you say, like I had to go and do it, and then figure out, where was the best thing to do it, because I can't hold on to all these things. I needed to be cleaned, because they got a bit destroyed and all this type of thing. And some people are going to be able to identify the value in these things where I couldn't. And so it's like, it was overwhelming though. Like seeing these two big bins just full of, one bin was pretty much full of books, and the other one had books just thrown on top. And I left all the fiction books. They were just all, whatever's, but all of these classics, hardcovers. I'm looking at this going, man, this is, it's unfortunate that, they're not considered to be valuable, maybe like they once were. It's just like, oh, just put them in there, someone will take them.
Well, that's what's happened. And that's the problem with the esoteric community is it is benefiting from two things, and so it suffers from a lack of knowledge of history. At least it thinks it knows history, but it doesn't really. It doesn't have the real knowledge of what it took to get this stuff. In you, most of the people are able to get almost whatever they want within 2 or 3 days or a week from Amazon,
Yeah.
and they don't understand. Just there was a time when it was very difficult to get. You could, but mail order took 4 to 6 weeks. You had to get the catalogs. There were books of catalogs that you would go get just to write away for catalogs of things you wanted, just so you could get what you wanted. Or you would have to take a bus into a major city and go through the yellow pages and find the bookstores and line them up on a map, a physical map, and then go walk through them or take a bus or a subway or something. So the ability to get information is so dramatically easy that it gives the misconception that it will always be
Mm,
easy and always be affordable.
yes.
And it won't. There's no reason to believe that's true. Uh, Joseph Leshevsky had a spectacular library that went off to someone. That's in a private holding. No one's going to see that. So a lot of things, people keep thinking, well, can't you just give the books to a university or something? Well, yes and no. Most universities and colleges don't have the facilities to manage this. And they have to make sure that there's an interest too. So you may end up giving something to a university and they'll just sell it off for $1 a book on their used book bin. Well, you can do that yourself if you want to. You have to be able to select out of 500 copies, maybe what are the best 100 or 250 or 50. You have to be able to do this. And then again, there has to be the interest. What is the interest here? And of course, we're an organization. We have bills to pay and things to run. So if we're just going to dispense with everything immediately, we would just sell it off, so at least we'd have resources to keep moving into the future. And that's always the thing. What are your resources? What are the resources you have? And how can you keep the wheel spinning so that you stay in existence? And resources is not something that we see a lot of modern esoteric movements thinking about, because it requires a connection to the future, a sense of obligation, a sense of duty. And that then moves you into the realm of initiation and out of the realm of this as a means of personal satisfaction. Like taking, New Thought or The Secret and turning it to steroids, dressing it up neatly. It's more exciting the way we dress it up. We call it magic or something. But I'm still just trying to get what I want, and I'm not really thinking about much else. I mean, if you really want to be happy and really get what you want, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And, that's what I try to explain to folks, and you don't want to overstate this point, but, if you really want to be an adept, you got to get out of your own way. And you're going to have to do things that you don't really like. In fact, you really shouldn't care about it anyhow. I don't like. I mean, that's, you just help out. Learn to just help out with some positive indifference. Someone's got to sweep the floors.
Yeah.
Someone's got to bake the bread. I got to tell you, when I used to do retreats on occasion, I didn't do too many. I was the guy who used to go sweep the floors because they leave you alone. But that also means someone has to take care of the paperwork. Someone has to take care of the bills. And that requires money.
Yep.
And here's where many hands lighten the load. Everyone listening to this can give something. They just have to decide they want to, that it's that they value it. They value the idea. They value the idea sufficiently enough to make a contribution and to act on it. And from that action, derive whatever positive benefits they get from it. That's all. And that's the nature of karma. You decide, I will act in this direction. I want to see these ideas present in the future. I want others to have access to them. Hopefully myself as well, maybe. And to do that, I'm going to take an action that will, to the best of my knowledge and the best of my ability, attempt to ensure that that is the case. And this is my contribution to see that that happens.
That's wonderful. And I think too, going book hunting, it's a lot of fun, everybody. If you haven't gone into book hunting, it's a lot of fun. Like thrift stores, man, I tell you what, you want to be going to thrift stores every other day because someone else is going to snap up those things. Look, seriously, a friend rocked into a thrift store the other day and she saw something and she goes, "Oh, Phil might like that." It was a brand new Rider-Waite deck. Thank you. And at a thrift store, and it was all brand new in the box, and it was obviously nowhere near the new price. And I'm like, wow, what a treasure. And then I can't believe my library is growing thanks to the thrift stores. It's surprising. there are some people into esoteric content who live in my local village. The fact that we have in the local library, we have a copy of one of the books on Enochian language, the book face fronting forward. It's there are people who are interested in these things, but you know, we also have these large events that happened each year. Like it's one we have coming up shortly called Bookarama, and there's a giant gymnasium in one of the local intermediate or middle schools. And I've had the pleasure of hosting some large events there. It's massive, and they deck it out with tables, and all the local community brings all the books in, and basically money goes to a charity and things. But essentially, you bring in the books, you donate the books, and you just have this huge, like massive community event. And I have no idea how they organize it, but it's a massive, like the logistics of organizing this kind of event, the advertising, they had some of the dads built. This is community. This is ground up, everyone. They're building these big wooden shelters on wheels that they put at various business locations that are happy to put it on their premises, where people can come and just drop off big piles of books, and then somebody comes and gets those. This is a big operation for, people aren't getting paid for this, but it's a really fun, engaging community event. And I think this is, part of the fun is that, like, I'm very lucky to have that this is going on and it's alive in my local area, and so coming back to what you said, Mark, um, obviously one thing that happens in the modern era with the internet is that part of the sort of the awareness building involves essentially building a bit of a following, like getting subscribers or followers, or I don't know what you call them now, like get building lists of contacts that people who are interested in what you're doing, and you can keep them apprised. And
Building your tribe.
okay, perfect. Would you like to talk about that? Because I think that's kind of important, like for helping people find you. They want to find you, and that takes time building, your presence so that people can come across you, you know.
Well, we're very easy to find. All you have to do is Google us, Institute for Hermetic Studies, and you'll find us. But we are on Teachable, and we encourage you for now to go to Teachable. And I just want to talk, you're talking about going to Substack. We're in the process of updating our website because we have an older one and we have not really updated it in about 6 or 7 years for a variety of reasons. Again, COVID being one of them, getting the Teachable platform going, doing some work with Patreon. But all of those, Patreon, Teachable, all of these things are subject to someone else's opinion of what's acceptable. So we currently have, at great expense, a new website being built.
Oh, wow.
And we're also going to migrate all of our coursework to it. And that means that we will have, when it launches, we're going to continue to keep Teachable online for at least a year afterwards so that people still have access to it. But then after that year, and everything's migrated over and all the people are migrated over and this is a tremendous amount of work. Okay. If you go to Teachable and you see just how much we have in coursework and then how much is under each coursework in terms of files, it is just stunning. It is a complete path. And, once that's done, we're going to have greater control over our destiny there that we, at the moment, don't always have. If we say something that, of course, is offensive to someone, there's always that possibility that we're going to get pulled. We don't see that happening as much anymore as we did a few years back, but that's always the possibility. And esotericism it deals with ideas that are challenging to a lot of people. So we want to encourage people to think about things and to deal with challenging ideas. But we need to do that from a certain position of, I don't want to say safety, but stability. There have been serious efforts to deplatform us in the past. me personally and others. We've taken a big hit for a lot of these things. So with that going on, that's on the electronic side. And then we're working on multiple backups for that for long-term stability. We have our teacher training program, and we'll have folks graduating from that. And, they're going to be tasked with making sure that things in their own way continue into the future. But with that, of course, between our teacher training and then the Institute for Hermetic Studies collection, we think, we hope, we pray that we will at least have planted enough seeds that things will be around for another generation or two. And that's what we call tradition. That's another thing. Books aren't tradition. Books can be part of a tradition, but they're not. Living people are. Experiences. Probably one of the greatest problems has been books, people relying on them for all of their information. And you can't do that well. And I've had this talk with many people about the Golden Dawn. For the longest time, the only information they had was Regardie's book on the Golden Dawn. And not everything is in there simply because he didn't go to class. He went, he got his initiations, he got the lectures, knowledge lectures, but he didn't show up to lodge a lot. So what he put in there was the bare bones essential, which was fine, but it wasn't enough. So then what you do, and we've all done this, is then you go looking around to fill in the gaps. How can I fill in the gaps here? And then what we end up with is a very eclectic, but often uncompatible series of ideas, systems, and practices. And then we just get psychic indigestion and either give up or don't know what to do. So that's why it's really important that you get involved with an organization, a set of teachings that you trust. That's it. We're trying to tell people that what you need to do is, you need to do your duty, unpleasant, make your bed, and then also, because if you do, it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Really, it will. And then trust. Think of the future, and learn to trust. Who do you trust? And that's a real serious question when it comes to spiritual teachings, because you need to put your trust in the right place. And then you need to commit. And that's part of the discipline part. Because you only have so much time. There's only so much that you can do. So you need to choose wisely and you need to trust wisely, but you have to do both. And if you do, your progress is going to be a little quicker and a little easier. Not going to be easy. There's always difficulties involved, but at least you're going to avoid some psychic indigestion along the way. So when we go through books, we're very selective on making sure that, of course, it's easier in Hermeticism, it's easier in alchemy, Rosicrucianism, Martinism. Some of the other areas it can be a little more difficult on what to pick. But we look for things that are coherent. And if it's not coherent, like a coherent system or part of the coherent practice, we look for something that was maybe spectacularly important. Something that really stood out as meaningful. That made a difference on some level.
There's always going to be people translating older texts for the modern language, essentially with attention spans shortening, and essentially books written in the 17th century, people in the modern age will probably struggle to understand what's being written, and so people provide commentaries or modern translations to keep it alive and accessible to the chain. That's a fixed point. That book was made in a point in time, in a language, in a location, in a context that's vastly different 100, 200, 300 years later. And, there's some people just feel a natural calling towards, what, this is a beautiful piece of work, and I can't express it, like just share it and talk about it in its current form. I have to sort of translate it for the modern reader, essentially, because if we're planning forward for future generations, so that they don't have to keep reinventing the wheel, and all we're doing is blocking progress as well, because we don't have people like yourself so much en masse, going, okay, you know, uh, and I think about this, obviously, when I'm reading, like, in my time when I was reading a lot of fantasy fiction books, and looking about, intelligently written fantasy novels, talking about like a mages guild, or a there's a big tower, and there's people responsible for ensuring the library is kept at a certain in a certain way, but that was their job, and they sort of, they felt called to it or whatever. And these are important things, because I was talking about this with someone else recently. Like, if the internet suddenly switches off and everything you've got is on Kindle, or the power goes off, like, what do we do? And I think you said something beautiful before, is that, if you decide to take a role in helping to ensure the continuity of this, I think that's looked favorably upon by the all that is, in a sense, because it there's a presence of awareness of these pathways that wishes to be maintained and available, but it kind of falls on the people who discover it to sort of help keep it alive. And like you said, this takes structure, it takes time and life, and resources. And I mean, like, setting up this interview today, and then doing all the graphics yesterday, and doing some research and doing some things and this and that, like, I, you know, I don't. This seems to be a sensible and responsible and valuable use of my life. Putting this together to help bring this forward. You're a wonderful speaker. This is a valuable enterprise. People have got access to the teachings. There's a lot that gets taken for granted, and I do see commentary of people being critical of content creators who are helping to keep this alive in the minds, and people. It's interesting. I'm not necessarily wanting to get adversarial here or anything like this, but I think that from time to time we need to enunciate, or bring attention to the fact that this does take a lot of effort, and we're not doing it for the money and the chicks, that's for sure. Like, this is something that requires an investment of oneself, and it's not something you'd want to do, half-assed either. It's, we really care about this. And so, when you're starting to involve people, when people reach out to you and ask how they can help with their hands, is that something that happens, Mark? Do people reach out and say, hey, look, I haven't got any capital to offer, but is there something I can do otherwise?
Well, I always tell them, you always have capital. You got $5 a month. And the reason I say that is because it's important that they understand that they do have it. They just choose not to. They're trying to avoid that part of the commitment. We're not dealing with poor people here. If you're sitting in front of this screen listening to this interview, you may not be rolling in cash, but there's $5 a month.
Yeah.
And that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where we move beyond, what is commitment? Do you want to be an adept or not? An adept is someone who can solve life's problems. That's the easiest definition. And that means commitment, and commitment to expanding your capacity. But that means, taking a good look at what your resources are and how you use them now. And that means moving this out of the realm of entertainment. People are fond to criticize because this is entertainment for them. It's not really education, and it's not really a practice. This is information gathering, or entertainment, or a combination of both. It's infotainment is what we call it.
Yeah.
When you move into the idea of practice, then there's discipline and dedication. There's a commitment. Everyone can do 5. They just decide they want to buy a cafe latte instead.
Right there.
It's right there. No problem with that. No problem with 2 of them. But when we tell you to sit down and make your bed, that's when we're being mean. But you look at the paths. Look at the paths that lead to Tifreth. And I use this because most of the listeners are familiar with the Tree of Life. If you look at those paths from the contemporary perspective, all of them are paths of sacrifice. You're getting rid of stuff there. You're getting rid of stuff you have to get rid of. And you can either do that the easy way or you can do that the hard way. And the easy way is just to do it head on. The hard way is to avoid it. Whenever you avoid things in life, that's when the problems compound. It's like that bill. You pick that bill up and you hate it and you just can't stand it. You put it down and next thing you know, you got interest charges when the best thing would have been done just to pay it off right then and there. Or pay off as much as you could right then and there. Or ask yourself serious questions about what are you doing with your life and your time. There's enough time for entertainment, and this is the hard part. There's enough time for entertainment. At some point, you've got to decide how are you going to live your life and how are you going to be when you're dead. Because you only take with you what you've created. You only take with you what you've done. So if you get to die knowing that you helped create something that lives beyond you, rather than you made it to the 6th level of some video game or played it for the 20th time, that's not going to help you when you're dead. Building something for the future has a better chance of at least giving some positive. It's like, the adepts. You have no right to call upon the God. None whatsoever. God, the saints, the unknown superiors for help in anything. Unless you've tried to help others, unless you've helped others. That was the great undoing of Leshevsky. I wrote about that at length. The great undoing of people is that they approach magic and occultism for very, very selfish motives, even if they're pleasant. And they can be very pleasantly selfish. Please understand that. But you have to get out of your own way. You have to think about others. You have to and think in a healthy, positive way. You have to plan. You have to get involved. You have to develop healthy relationships. And you have to make sacrifices. Then, when you are a person of capacity, when you have something to offer, when you have abilities, it doesn't matter what those abilities are, because each one of you is going to be very different. There's always going to be that one person or that few people who are superstars. They graduated with honors, they were star athletes, they did everything. There's going to be people like that. Most of us aren't. When I taught public speaking, and it was at this university, I would tell my students, when I was in that seat taking public speaking, I would have called you crazy if you said to me, you're going to be teaching this class someday. And in fact, I'll bring in my transcripts to show you my grade in that class so you understand what I'm talking about. This class is a beginning. It's not an end. And it's the same way with this work that we do. Memorizing a whole bunch of symbols, you drive yourself crazy with symbols. We've talked about that at length and other things. I don't want to go off on that, but you have to say, how is this informing and affecting my life in a healthy manner? And then how am I informing and affecting other people's lives in a healthy manner? Then the adepts and the unknown superiors will take an interest in you. But they're not going to take an interest in you if all you're caring about is yourself. I mean, it's all right. You can just care about yourself. That's fine. But then don't expect any help because you've brought none to the table. So this is an opportunity to buy a seat at the table. And what I say by that is, you can't buy your way into heaven, but you can buy your way out of hell. You can't, you have to begin to say, what is my contribution to living? What is my contribution to the life that I have and been given? And that's the legacy you leave. Now, for those involved in the Institute, this is part of our legacy. This is something we're going to look to and say, we did that.
Hmm.
And we're never going to meet everybody who benefits from it, ever. And they may even say nasty and unpleasant things about us. Who knows? We don't care. But we'll know we did that.
And this may be a great opportunity to sort of go and have a look at the GoFundMe that you've set up, so people can have a first-hand look at the.
And our wonderful video.
Oh yes, of course.
Oh,
Absolutely.
are you gonna play the video or let people click on that themselves? That was.
Well, I'm going to leave that up to you. Let's see.
Oh, it's whatever you guys want. That's you guys decide that.
Let's put it up here. If you guys haven't seen the video, I can put it up, and so maybe I will actually. I'll bring it up, and I'll just.
Yeah, why not? Let's have fun.
Yeah, cool. And just want to say, anyone in the chat, if you've got any questions, we'll give Mark we'll pepper him with some questions towards the end of the cast. So please put your questions into the live chat.
Scroll down to the pictures below so they see the building that it's going to be in.
Oh wow, look at this. Hang on, I'll see if I can blow this up. Check this out. Imagine this is beautiful. Look at the art on the walls. Isn't that something?
Yeah, that's just one hall of one floor.
And this is a university library.
That is correct. Jesuits.
These fellas are they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I call that the bunker. Yeah. I remember the old library before that one was built.
Okay, cool as. All right, let's have a look at this wonderful video here. So this video was this free? This video, Mark? Did somebody just give this video and all of the video editing, which I'm aware of what happens in video editing? Was this all free and a wonderful gift?
I want to say it's free and a wonderful gift, but I think a lot of arm twisting went on.
yeah, right. So I'll add this here now. I may have to actually change this slightly because it won't play the sound otherwise. So I need to turn that off. So I'll just quickly do that. Exit screen share. Okay, let's go for Institute for Hermetic Studies. So everyone, I'll be with you in a sec. Just doing the backdoor stuff here. Where are we? Perfect. Tab. There we go. Wonderful. All right, here we go. Let's have a look here. Man, nimble on my feet, getting better and better at this.
Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, some books leave us free and some books make us free. That gift, the gift of freedom, is one we seek for ourselves and for others. It is the freedom that certain ideas can bestow upon our mind and forever change our course in life, even across lifetimes. My name is Mark Stavish, and I am the founder and director of studies of the Institute for Hermetic Studies, and I'm asking for your support as the Institute works in cooperation with the Weinberg Memorial Library at the University of Scranton in the establishment of the Institute for Hermetic Studies collection. This collection of books, publications, letters, lessons, recordings, and ephemera, all dealing with various forms and schools of esoterica, spirituality, and psychic research, will be one of a limited number of its kind across the country, and will be the first of its kind in the region. Here, in northeastern Pennsylvania's premier research library, these materials will be made available to both researchers and the general public. Listed in a searchable database, this special collection will provide a safe and lasting home for this vital and often fragile information coming from some of the 20th century's most important organizations and authors dealing with consciousness studies, as well as traditional Hermeticism, alchemy, astrology, and Kabbalah. So join with us as we pave the way into the future. A future where the seeds of the tree of knowledge are planted and watered, and where maybe, in some not so distant life, you can sit under its bountiful shade and enjoy the fruits thereof. Make your financial contribution today using our GoFundMe page. Or to find out more information, contact us at info@hermeticinstitute.org. Thank you.
Wonderful. My gosh. That's a beautiful video. Somebody did a great job of that. Thank you to whoever did that. I appreciate it. And being someone who deals in video editing, that's a nice bit of work. Well done. Nice chops, bro.
I'll pass that along. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, so here we are. So we're on the GoFundMe thing. So let's just get straight down to the goods here. So I've got scrolling along the bottom of the screen here. You can see I've got a link to the GoFundMe. Search for Hermetic Studies when you go to GoFundMe.com. If you look in the YouTube description of the video that you're watching right now on YouTube, you will see I've got a bunch of links there. One of them, the top one, is to go to this website here where you can see what's happening with the GoFundMe. So, and also all the other links to find the works of the Institute for Hermetic Studies, and I'll make sure that I've got all of them there once we've finished the stream. Now, Mark, this is a modern way of sort of helping do funding. I must say, like I'm helping a couple of people out with their Kickstarters at the moment for various projects, and this seems to be a popular way of packaging up and presenting. I think a fun, interactive way of, because obviously, like, when you're asking for financial assistance or contribution, it's good to convey a sense of credibility and security, and that the money's going to go somewhere. And so a third-party platform like, say, GoFundMe, these are like Kickstarters, and that they offer a little bit of that. Now, obviously, we're not questioning the Institute for Hermetic Studies, which has been around for a very long time, but it adds a bit of gravity to it, and I think it also puts it in front of people's eyes. Although I'm not sure how many people actually search for esoteric stuff on GoFundMe, but hey. But how are you finding this platform in general as being useful for your endeavor here so far?
We've used various platforms in the past for smaller amounts. When we were doing publishing, we would raise money for our publishing of different books, because people would ask us, to publish things, and we said, well, we can, but it's not financially viable. I mean, Weiser or Llewellyn isn't going to publish this. So if we do, we have to do print on demand, which is fine, but we're going to have to pay someone, even if a modest amount, to help out. So we've done them in the past. We find them to be useful. There's a cost involved.
Yeah.
I think if you look on this one, what's nice about it is it does say, there's a note that says tax deductible, which is verification. We can't click that. That's a verification that we're a 501c3.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so when someone, if someone says, because you can be a nonprofit, people throw that term around, and that's fine. But there's a difference between saying, well, oh, we don't make a profit, and whatever that means. By the way, I don't even go down that road. It doesn't mean anything's for free. It's just a tax structure is what it is. It doesn't mean you get free stuff. You still have to pay electric bills. Okay. What it means is that certain things are potentially available to you, in terms of, if people make donations, they can deduct that on their, state or federal income taxes, at least in the United States. So this is a verification that we are a 501c3. We still pay platform
Ralph Waldo
fees.
Emerson.
So there's still platform fees associated with it. So one of the things that we did is we want donors, and we appreciate our donors. So we have a list of benefits that donors are going to get. And if they scroll down, they'll see what they are for the different amounts.
Yep,
And
let's go through that. Yep.
essentially what we'll do is, we want you to participate in the coursework. We want this to be educational for you. We want this to be a practice for you. We want this to help you in your inner journey. So we have a variety of different benefits that we'll give to donors at different levels. And probably the best one is, whatever, I can't see it too well, but at one point, we give you the entire course package there for whatever the amount is. Of course, anything goes. Anything is fine because on one hand, it all adds up. And I want the listeners to understand. I'm going to talk to you like adults here, okay,
Yep.
so that you
Let's do it.
understand. On one hand, everything adds up. So you have to make sure you do your best, no matter what it is. This, could be Cub Scouts, it could be anything. I don't care. You make your $5 a month donation. But, for the amount that we're looking for, which is not a huge amount, there are certain amounts that you in fundraising know you have to match, you have to meet. Now, historically in esoterica, you don't match those. Okay, they don't really happen, which skews the formula a bit. But if I said all I need is, look at if I had 1,000 people give me $100, I'd have $100,000. A lot of problems would be solved just like that. If I had 500, or if I had 500 people give me $100, a lot of problems would be solved like that. $100 isn't much. Are we going to get it? We need an average of $200 per donor, based on previous formula. Now, donors here don't have to give that, because hopefully we can change the formula. But that formula is known as what we call retail investing. Retail meaning that's what you'd spend at a store if you went shopping for shoes. Okay. Large donors get to make big decisions in any organization because that's who pays the bills. And that should not be underestimated. Large donors are what make things happen. So when we ask you to give and we say give as much as you can, that's why. Because a lot of people are going to hear the message. A lot of people are going to agree with the message. But for whatever reason, and I don't know what that is, they're not going to act on it. So everyone who does act then really has to not only act for themselves, but they have to act for the people who didn't. People talk about the American Revolution. Really anywhere between 25 and 30% of the population supported the revolution, depending on what time of year it was or phase of the war. About a third of the people didn't care, and about a third were still going to be loyal to Britain. So kind of keep that in mind. It was successful. Small amounts of people, small groups can do tremendous things. You can make tremendous changes in the world if you leverage that. So I ask you to be all in. Support this as much as you can, financially and emotionally, and with effort into the work. But if you say, no, I don't care in the long run, as long as you then put that resources to something worthwhile. That's all I ask. Do the best you can. So for those who do the best they can, and each one has to figure out for themselves what that is, we're trying to say thank you in the best way we can without adding more expense. Because, when you do premiums, giveaways, now this takes time. It takes time to log everyone in and get them set up. It's going to be more hours of time, more hours of life. But when you do premiums and you're sending people a mug or something or a t-shirt or whatever, man, you're paying for that. That's coming out of the fundraiser. So keep that in mind. So when you see those, give whatever and get a mug, well, how about keep the mug? Put the money to the work, to the program, whatever that is. But we got lots of great stuff there. We look forward to all of your support. And if you got any questions, just feel free to ask me. I guess we got a little bit more time here. So
wonderful, thank you. And yes, please, people in the chat, feel free to. We've got about another 15 minutes of access to the wonderful and very busy Mr. Mark Stavish. So now's a great opportunity if you've got any questions. And there is a question here. Let's have a look here. So I'll leave this. I'll leave this up on the screen, especially this beautiful picture of the library. That's just stunning. Okay, so the first question we have here is from Will Blackett, and Will is asking: is there a Hermetic book for children?
Not that I'm really aware of. I think that when we look at Hermetic books for children, we're looking mostly at fairy tales. I think that's a definite problem because we do see a lot of what we'll call books specifically written for and aimed at children with various Buddhist and occasional, we use the broad term Hindu ideas in them. But we don't have what we would call, and really what we're talking about here, we're talking about a Sunday school primer, right? When I was going to Sunday school, I used to walk in the back door of the church, and sometimes I turn around and walk out. They had these little comics of Bible stories, and they were comics, like comic books, right? And you go grab those and read those. So within that framework, I think that the problem is that historically, esotericism, Hermeticism, this is something adults do within a broader cultural framework. So without that cultural framework to prepare a child for the adult option of this style of worship and practice, and you're making tragic errors. If you really want to prepare someone for Hermetic work, you need to have, one, the magical worldview, but with that, you have to have the mental development and the philosophical and the moral and ethical development. Traditionally, you didn't get to study Indian tantras until you were an adult, more or less. It might have been a young adult, but you're still an adult. You didn't just jump in there at age of 8. And most of these kids weren't meditating at age of 8 or 9 or 10 or 12. They were reading scripture, and they still do. They read scriptures, and they get lectured on it and tested on it, whatever. So when we look at Hermetic books for children, we have to ask, well, what are we asking that book to inform in the mind of the child, and what are we asking it to do?
Yeah, that's a good point. I've got a friend who is homeschooling her children with Waldorf, and she's found a great love for sourcing, Steiner hardcovers and hard to find books. So she's building a pretty sizable library, and there's, you know. But part of the process is, because I'm learning about this because she lives just up the road, so I get to see sort of this process, and there's a lot of development of imaginal capacity, like almost like guided meditation by reading fairy tales and stories and things that bring in certain themes and ideas that, it was funny actually because, it was a point where we were talking about, she said that they don't teach cause and effect too early on. Like, they don't specifically focus on this. It's more about developing the imaginal capacity because, like, for example, in the Initiation into Hermetics program that I work with through the Franz Baden book, you start off building these sort of faculties at these base levels quite early on, and I can sort of see a correlation there. So, as far as kids go, keeping them engaged in being interested in things that, like you said, helping to build a context that's relatable and I guess relevant to the work that's coming up. Because you're essentially setting up there's things you can teach your kids early on to help them, like, prime them, I guess, for being, much more conducive for this work if they choose to go down this track. But I mean, these skill sets and things are valuable. Like you say, if we can apply this in everyday life and help to improve the lives of those around us, etc., then we are actually, making good use of them. And so, yeah.
Two things come to mind. Contemporary neo-paganism, and that would seem different aspects of esotericism, were not terribly family friendly. In fact, I would say most of them are. They don't have a big genetic future. They're shakers just without the celibacy. They don't know that. They're really setting themselves up for extinction if they don't change things and become more family oriented. And the only group I knew that did that very well was the Rosicrucian Order Amorc. Amorc, we think of it mostly as at least at the time of adult organization, but they did have 2 programs for children. They had their own children's orders, and that was a way of engaging children in learning these ideas in a very friendly environment. There was an organization. I don't know much about it because I haven't looked at it in a very long time. Something known as Pagan Scouts, which was an attempt to create a scouting alternative along the lines of pagan motifs, neo-pagan motifs. Unfortunately, even when I contacted that a very, very long time ago, it just wasn't getting responses. And in fact, I think it was dormant. I don't want to say it was non-existent, but dormant. But you may Google that and see if it has been reactivated or more vital. So when we look at this, remember, we're dealing with children and we're dealing with preparation, we're dealing with a worldview, mental training, and a culture, not techniques. If they learn to concentrate, everything is easy.
Oh yeah.
So the more you can do to get them off electronic devices and actively engaging the imaginal in a positive way, the easier it'll be.
And that segues perfectly into the next question that's been put in here from Slim Lil. What are your thoughts on smartphones and other gadgets in relation to esoteric work, and whether they act as an educational hindrance? An educational / infotainment hindrance, or actually using them to supplement or complement your practice. So I guess you could go any number of ways with that one.
Well, they can provide you with information, but they can't do anything for you. Even when you do certain technologies like HemiSync or the machines that Jean Dubuis made for balancing the hemispheres, which are pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
It just provides an opportunity, and you have to take advantage of that. I would say for the most part, the technology is a distraction, and a distraction is death, because that time never comes back. Those ideas are now part of your mental structure, and you have to either let them die or replace them with something more beneficial. The greatest threat we have to human consciousness right now is indifference, and indifference is a form of selfishness. It's a form of laziness. Laziness, selfishness, indifference are all the same thing. And the ease of satisfaction, meaning I don't have to do anything, I'll just distract myself with video games or movies. I don't need a real relationship, I'll just spend all day jacking off to porn or get an AI girlfriend. That is the destruction of the individual. And it's mostly young men. It's mostly young men, but not exclusive. Young women destroy themselves with technology in a different way. But that destruction is irreparable as long as that technology is within easy access. And because it's so ubiquitous, at least as long as for now, it takes a tremendous amount of personal effort to make progress. But that's why we say this is the Kali Yuga, the age of iron. And that any practice done on the age of iron is worth more to you karmically than in any other age, because it takes so much effort. It's a choice. It's a decision. When you say, I'm going to put $5 in that pot and I'm going to do that every week or every month, that's a decision.
Yep.
When you say 10, 20, 100, 1,000, whatever, that's a decision. You can weigh that against things. You can measure that. Because it's so easy not to. And that's really important to understand. It's so easy to take the path of easy satisfaction. And when you do that, that's suicide on the slow plan.
sometimes I think about some of the small successes, and they were, crossing thresholds and milestones and reaching certain goals it's satisfying, obviously, but you can't stay there. Like there's nothing there once, and I think one thing I find is that the more I work through study practice, you know, there's I prefer meaningfulness and fulfillment and how I relate to what those things are. And seeing people do well is definitely something that helps bring me to life. But I don't want to talk too much about me. We're running out of time here. But this is the thing is like we can set the place up for a win, but it's going to take some legwork on our behalf. And this is where it rubber meets the road. Now I've got another question here. Now it's a bit of a wide one, but we'll go for it anyway. Oswald Spengler is asking, any thoughts on Vedic astrology as it relates or doesn't to Hermeticism? And this is, I guess, handy in the way that, like Western esotericism, no doubt draws from this, but I'll just pass it to you, Mark.
Well, Vedic astrology is essentially ancient Greek astrology. The Indians got their astrology from ancient Greece. It's really a survival of classical astrology. And there's some variations, some modifications that are different, but it's classical astrology, as opposed to the more modernized version that most people are familiar with here. But in the last 30 years, there's been a tremendous revival in classical astrology. And Jamie Paul Lamb, who is our astrology instructor at the Institute, has given 2 courses on classical astrology and Hermeticism. One whole course was just on how to derive the name of your guardian angel from the methods described in Agrippa. He did a class on that. So other than that, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's a different approach. It's effective. The thing about astrology too that's confusing is that there's so many different approaches, and yet when you find your angle in, it tends to work. Rather than trying to say, this is the one. I mean, I'm sure there are some things out there that just are ludicrous or ineffective, but generally speaking, there's a lot of ways to skin this cat, and somehow, for whatever, I mean, how does horary astrology work? I mean, isn't that crazy? How is it that I can ask a question, take that time, use it to create a chart, and find out where someone lost their watch or their phone or their wallet? I mean, how do you derive that? It's behind the couch. Okay, I've seen that done. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. So we got 2 classes on astrology if you want to take them.
Well, let's just do a quick plug for that too while we're here. So what I'll say is, so this is the Teachable site, and there is a lot of content on here. And I've tried searching around Teachable. It's a bit of a strange site. I guess you have to enroll or log in to get sort of navigation.
You have to enroll. This is why we look forward to getting off Teachable. I mean, look, it's been wonderful to us for the years we've been on it, but I do look forward to not being on it. You have to enroll in Teachable, and then you can go to any of the sites you want on the Institute for Hermetic Studies site. And when you enroll, they want you to enroll as a creator. And then they have a terrible question which they ask about getting emails. It's, do you wish to opt out from getting emails? And your answer has to be no. Then you'll get emails. So you use a double negative in the question. So this was clearly a site that was developed by teachers and computer programmers, because it's completely meaningless to anyone but them in terms of ease of navigation.
Yeah, I've heard other people talk about this too. The best way to do anything is to set up a really robust, your own website. And, like I'm using Substack for now as a point, because it's one of the more, I would like to think, less censorship oriented platforms and that. But, yeah, ideally, guys, we'll have purpose-built situations because all the tech's there and it's getting easier and easier to do. But these people take a cut, and their navigation in itself, some people just get turned off and will switch off because they're just impossible to navigate. And I found that with various platforms too.
I found courses are just closed for no reason, and then I
Oh
have
yeah,
to spend time going in and reopening them. Now that's happened less and less, but I'll tell you, originally when I started loading courses on there, it was a nightmare loading. Why is this so difficult?
yeah.
But it's easier now. Now I not only have they updated and changed it, but I use it more often. But still, it is a process. It is a laborious process to put a course up there. But we've got great classes, and they'll be up for at least another year, maybe two, and then everything. So if you're enrolled in one of our courses, you'll be enrolled in it when we navigate away.
If you really want the secrets, people, you might have to figure out how to navigate various things to find them, just like in real life. The wisdom wants you to find it, but it's not going to. It wants you to make you dance a little. It likes to make you play. Okay.
Well, it's still easier and cheaper than taking taking a trip to some austere Central Asian country or Egypt and trying to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi out there. So
Yeah. That's it. And there's less time investment involved, I'd like to think. Well, Mark, I want to say thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm hoping that this will help to invigorate and create a bit of awareness about the endeavor. And we're very lucky to have someone like you in the community who's a prolific author, speaker, teacher, creator. You're all in to create the structure and reach out to people and make this thing happen. I am just want to say thank you so much for this. And please, people, you can find. There's so many ways to see what's happening, and this is the where is it? The Vox Hermes WordPress site, is that like a good central hub or a central point for people to sort of go for an overview,
there's so much on there, so many essays, so many really well-written essays. Just go there and enjoy and drink deep, and then come over. I'd say bite the bullet, get a Teachable account, and enroll in Teachable and enroll in our free course, Unfolding the Rose. 6 hours of free. We're also getting that updated. We have someone working on improving the audio and video quality on that, which will be nice. But that's going to be probably another 6 months to a year before that's done. And but until then, you can learn the way everyone else did, old school way. But anything that we post that's of importance will get posted to Vox Hermes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And people, the opportunity is there. The GoFundMe is there. You can put hang on, I'm just going to make the screen right here. Everyone, you can put in this much. You can put in this much, or if you're feeling like it, if you're a Texas billionaire that enjoys making irresponsible purchasing decisions and is looking to offload 6 figures, here's a great option. It pays off in the long run, and it's helping to keep this. Well, churches are working hard to make sure that they retain their existence, and it's not dissimilar in the sense that they require the support of their communities to stay alive. And these practices and studies that we do is no different. These things need to be maintained, and that takes, like Mark says, time, talent, and treasure. So please consider this. Go in and just do it and just see how you feel. Imagine if you went and put like $50, $100 or something down, and then all of a sudden you got some beautiful blessings come through from other things. You never know. I think this work wants to be supported, so give it a shot. Mark, have you got any closing words or any upcoming events or anything else you'd like to share before we finish up?
Well, this is what we're focusing on for the better part. We do have an upcoming class called 415, which is the 4 things you need to do for 15 minutes minimum every day to have a successful life. And when we say successful, we mean successful in all areas. This is fundamental stuff that will really help you solve a lot of your problems and allow you to make progress in your day-to-day life as well as in your spiritual practice, in your esoteric practice. And we've had a couple people look at the outline and the curriculum and really excited about it. So if you want to jump in, I'd say sign up for that. It's really going to be, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be really good. And most of our time is spent on this, on getting this program, this fundraising completed. So we've got a lot on the plate.
And obviously, people, if you sending your Mark, do you do regular newsletters to update people as well?
Yeah, we send something out once a week through Teachable, and we post something at least once a month on Vox Hermes. What we try to do is not overwhelm you.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something once a month, twice a month, once a week, not, those places that just send you stuff every day. We're not going to do that. We want to keep in touch with you, but you have to enjoy that moment of communication, not just say, oh, I got to avoid another email, unsubscribe. Yeah. We want you to look forward to what we send you.
Now, for people who sign up through Teachable, are you able to access their email address for this list as well, or do Teachable keep hold of that information?
We can access the Teachable list.
Yep.
Yeah, we can access that, but I think we can download that. I'd have to look into that.
But certainly, as far as like if somebody wanted to get regular updates, this is via the Institute for Hermetic Studies website.
Vox Hermes is great. Yeah, that's a very non-committal way.
That's great, and that way if you're going to surrender an email address, it's going to go direct to the source rather than via a third party too. So yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Well, Mark, if I could get you to stick around for just for 1 minute once I've closed the live stream, I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat.
Thank you.
You guys have been great. Please share this video. Please like and subscribe and all those sorts of things. Go to my philrice.substack.com. For the moment, that's where I'm kind of doing a lot of my updating and things. And hopefully they're going to be doing live streaming shortly. I have signed up for that, so that could be interesting. But yes, wonderful to have you all here. Mark Stavish, always a pleasure. Please go to voxhermes.wordpress.com to find out what's going on. Enter in your email address. Go to GoFundMe. It's all in the YouTube description below. Thank you, everyone. Stay well, and I will see you all again very soon.
Thank you.